Hi everyone, it's Jamie from Rocket Guest Posting here, and in this video we're going to show you how to use one of our free SEO tools called Website Finder. Website Finder is part of our suite of free tools designed to help you grow your online business. Before we explain what Website Finder is, how to use it, and why you might want to use it, please be sure to check out our free 7-day trial of Rocket Guest Posting, which is the internet's largest database of websites that accept guest posters, along with all their key SEO metrics and contact details. Website Finder is a desktop application that allows you to crawl the internet looking for websites that match your search criteria. You can provide it with a list of websites to check, a set of search terms, or just let it endlessly crawl from one website to another. So let's explore the application and then we'll see it in action. Here you can see there are three main ways of searching for websites that match your search criteria. You can search through a list of websites, line separated. You can enter a set of search terms, line separated. And you can also enter a set of seed websites, and the crawler will download those websites, extract all the external domains on them, and then crawl those websites and go on and on and on and repeat that loop and endlessly crawl the internet looking for websites that match your search criteria. So before we show the application in action, let's just go through some of the settings. Here we have our general crawl settings. So we'll go through each one of these and explain what they do. So the delay between each request to website, that's basically how much of a delay the application will put in place between each request we send to a website's web server to download the page's HTML. Generally, if you've only got one concurrent thread crawling a website at a time, then you can just leave that at 0. Next we have how many concurrent websites to crawl. For my settings, I've got a relatively quick PC, so I usually put that at around 300 websites to be crawled in parallel. And here we have how many concurrent crawls to run per website. So that's how many connections will be downloading a website at once. Generally, I just leave that at 1, because if you have too many different concurrent connections downloading from a website, the website might think you're doing some sort of scraping or DDoS attack or something like that, and it might not like it and it might block your IP address. And generally you don't want to make a website slow as well for other users. And here we have the number of errors on a website before we stop crawling the website. In the unlikely event a website does block us because we're crawling it too fast, then this basically just means after 30 failed attempts we'll stop and move on to another website. Here we have the limit number of pages to crawl per website. So this is basically just a setting to stop the crawler getting in an infinite loop, because you'll find some websites they have very poor structure, and it can make web crawlers, even search engines like Google, think that there's basically an infinite number of pages on the website, when really it's just the parameters in the URL are structured very poorly. So here we limit the number of pages we crawl on a website so we don't end up crawling it in a loop forever. And here we have show URI being crawled. That just means that every time we download a page it will display it in the GUI. The reason that's a setting is because you can make the application go a little bit faster by turning that off, so you're not updating the GUI with hundreds of URLs that you're crawling every minute. But I generally like to leave that on so I can see the application's busy crawling away and working. And finally we have write results to text file. So if you're planning on leaving the application running for a long time and you're worried that you might have a power cut, or you might have a Windows update run, or in the unlikely event the application crashes, you can tick that on, and it just means that all the results we find, they'll be added into a results.txt file in the same directory as the application. So if there's a power cut or a crash or something like that, you don't lose all your results, you can just go into the text file and see them. Next up we have our search query crawl settings. So these are the settings that are used when you use the option to find websites from search engine results for your keywords. So limit results to crawl per search query. So that basically means that if you tick that and enter a number in there, it means for each of your keywords that we pull websites back from Google for, we'll only go 500 results deep, which is probably about 5 pages deep. So if you want to keep the domains you're checking ultra relevant, then you can use that feature there. Skip domain, which is Majestic Million. So sometimes there might be instances where you don't want to crawl popular domains. So the Majestic Million is the top 1 million most popular websites on the internet. And finally, there'll be certain websites you don't want to crawl, like YouTube, and you can tick that and enter a line separated list there. And finally, you don't want to send too many requests to Google too quickly, or they'll block your IP address. So we generally just wait a minute between each request. Now, depending on your connection, if you're running this from a data center IP, you might want to push that up a little bit more, and if you're running it from a residential IP, like your home internet, you can probably lower that a bit more. Now, in our Manage What to Search For tab, here we manage what the application will look for when it downloads a result from a search engine, or it checks a website in the list of websites you provide, or it finds a new website as it's endlessly crawling the internet. Here at the top you can specify if all of the conditions must be met, or just only one of the conditions in the list. You can see here that we've set WordPress as one of our search conditions, so a result will only be returned if the website is powered by WordPress. So let's go ahead and add a different search parameter. So let's say we only want to return websites where the metadata contains a certain set of text. So if we select the metadata option and then click configure, you can see we've got this window here where we enter our text, and every time we check a website to see if it matches our criteria, it will check inside the metadata description, the title tags, keyword tags, etc. for the text we enter here. So now hopefully you've got a feel for the application and what it can do. Let's go through each one of these 3 search types and see them in action. Now I've just entered around 9,000 domains out of the Majestic Million in here, and I've left the is WordPress search criteria there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do the search website list option, and we're going to search these websites and see which of them are powered by WordPress. As you can see, we're beginning the crawl, and we'll come back in a minute and see what we found. Okay, so we've come back just a minute later, and you can see we're still working through these domains. We've still got 8,000 to do. We've done around 600, 700, but we found 56 matching domains that are WordPress, and you can see they're in the list here. So now let's move on to the other search type. Now we're going to try and find websites from search queries, so they can be very niche related. Now there's only really a couple of new options on this screen here. One is check domain home pages, not full URLs, which means when we search Google for our search terms in here, we will check if that option is checked. We will check the home page for the criteria, not the URL that is returned by Google. And the second option to note here is that we now have a feature where for every result that comes back from our Google search for each of our keywords here, we will check the home page of that website, and we will only check it for the search criteria if its metadata contains one of the pieces of text that are line separated here. So in this example, we're going to search Google for League of Legends. It will pull back hundreds of websites, check if they're WordPress, and check if their homepage contains League of Legends in the website's metadata. Okay, so let's see the application in action. So you can see we've sent a query to Google, we've checked 4 websites so far, but none of them seem to be WordPress and contain League of Legends in the metadata on the home page. We'll come back in a second and see what we find. So we've come back a couple of minutes later, and you can see we've checked almost 100 websites so far, which is the result of 2 Google queries, and we found 14 domains that are niche related to League of Legends and powered by WordPress. So hopefully you can see the sort of use cases for this application. So for instance, you may be a WordPress developer, you've made an amazing plugin that allows you to show League of Legends game stats and things like that, and now you want a list of websites where you can market your product to. And typically you'd leave this application running overnight and you'd come back to hundreds of websites. Now let's go ahead and see the endless search in action. So I've entered just a few websites here. I've entered these 4 because I probably have a lot of outbound links to other websites, so that'll be good to get the application running quickly up to the 300 concurrent crawls that I've set it to. But you can enter any seed websites you like really, as long as they've got some outbound links. Now in this instance I've changed our search criteria. I've removed is WordPress and I've just put a HTML check to see if the home page contains the text latest news, and I'm hoping this will bring back lots of news websites. Okay, so we've been crawling just for a few seconds and you can see we've got the .com version of BBC, we've got the Mirror, we've got quite a few news websites in there. Now you can see obviously this was just a off the top of my head idea, and you can see it's worked. Obviously when you come to do your search you can tune it in any way you like. So hopefully you can see the value of this application. You can find tons of websites to market your products and services to, you know, SEO services, plugins, all kinds of things. So that's the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and as always please check out rocketguestposting.com, where you can get a completely free 7-day trial of the world's largest database of websites that accept guest posters, along with all their key SEO metrics and contact details.